Hello and welcome back to another Strat Gaming video guide. In this episode of the Ultimate Guide to Bannerlord, we're going to take an in-depth look at the trade skill, from how it works to how we gain XP, and finally how we can efficiently level it. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll show you my favorite trading strategy for bringing down any town, the Hostile Trader. I'm your host Strat, and I make Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord guides for YouTube, so if you like that sort of content, I highly recommend subscribing so you don't miss any future guides. I've broken this video up into several chapters, so if you're following along, you'll be able to easily navigate through relevant segments. Check down in the description below for the timestamps. With all that being said, I hope you enjoy this guide, and let's get started. Money can't buy happiness, they say, but it can buy me an army, feed them, and expand my kingdom, which actually makes me quite happy. And of all the ways we can earn money in Bannerlord, trade is one of the most consistent. The premise is simple: buy low, sell high. However, like any economy in real life, the economy of Calradia is surprisingly complex. When we buy or sell anything from a town or village, dinars are exchanged for the item plus a trade penalty. How much this penalty is determined by several factors: our trade level, what category of item we are trading, and if we have any perks that modify it. The only way to gain XP for trade that I could find was to buy an item and then sell it for more than you bought it for. 1 XP for every 2 dinars profit. If we go by only what's on the character screen, we can see that each level of trade earns us trade penalty reduction of 0.2% per level. At level 100, the reduction is 20%, and all the way up to 60 at level 300. However, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that determines how these reductions actually translate in the game. I ran several tests to determine how the math works, and it seems the Tailworld black box is stronger than ever with trade. To start, I took the most expensive item I could get and compared the buy and sell price of that item at different levels. At level 1, selling the armor to the town would earn us 99,542 dinars, and if we bought it right back, it would cost us 269,759. This means that these greedy bastards hit us with 171% markup on the equipment at level 1. At level 300, the price changes to 128,869 and 264,063 respectively. The markup is now reduced to 105%. Taking the difference, our 60% trade reduction reduces the markup from 171 down to 105, or a drop of 66 points. Keep in mind, this number represents both the buy and the sell side, as well as the shop's profit margin. I repeated the same process with another armor piece, and it produced the exact same percent differences. I then took one item from several different categories to compare. For trade goods, the markup at level 1 was 31.4% and 26% at 300. For mounts, 14.3% at level 1 and 9.48% at 300. Livestock is lumped together with trade goods, so their markup is the same. So how can we use this information to our benefit? The markup for equipment is massive, so buying gear from one town to sell in another is not a viable strategy. Trading goods is viable with a reasonable markup, but mounts have the lowest markup overall, and as we will see later, they are the most profitable to trade with. Using the same helmet from the previous test, we looked at the buy and sell side separately. For the buying side, at level 1, the cost was 12,254, which went down to 11,995 at level 300. We can see a massive discount in the purchase price of 2.11%. I ran the same test with Velvet, a horse, and livestock, which produced very similar results. Everything was around the same 2% discount range. Next, I repeated the process, but for the selling side of the transaction. Equipment was drastically different, with a nearly 30% increase in sell price between level 1 and 300. However, all of the other items were again in that 2% margin range. On face value, it would seem that leveling trade wouldn't really be worth our time, but let's double check just to make sure. Let's say we buy grapes for 10 dinars in one town and sell it for 15 in another, earning a gross profit of 5 dinars. Let's start at level 1 with 1 million dinars to invest. We can buy 100,000 grapes for $1 million and sell them for 1.5 million, earning a profit of 500,000 dinars. At level 300, we're able to get a 2% discount on the purchase side, or 9.8 dinars per grape, allowing us to buy an extra 2,040. When we go to sell, we get an extra 2% more from that level 1 price, which would come to 15.3 each, for a grand total of 1,561 to 12 dinars. This translates to a 12.2% increase in profit for the same transaction. And because these are percentage based, they will move with the sliding price scale when we trade in huge quantities. Finally, I ran a few more tests to see if some of the perks made any appreciable difference. Using all of the same items as before, we can see the level 25 trade perk Appraiser wholesaler gives an 8% increase in the sell price at level 300. The level 25 trade perk wholesaler gives a 0.55% increase in sell price at level 300. When deciding between which perk to take, consider this. In order to benefit from the wholesaler, you would need to sell 16 times more volume of trade goods than equipment to reach the break-even point. Also remember that trade reduction to equipment sales is 30% and only 2% for trade goods. The choice is yours. The level 75 riding perk filled to brim reduces the buy price by 3.4% and the sell price by 3.7% for mounts at level 300. The level 75 trade perk local connection increases the selling price of livestock by 3.62% at 300. There was a ton of info there, so let's look at the key takeaways. You can expect a 12% increase in net profit for non-equipment trade goods from level 1 to level 300. You can expect a 30% increase in net profit from selling equipment loot from battles from level 1 to level 300. Of the non-equipment trade goods in the game, mounts will provide the highest margin. Most perks are inconsequential, but don't ever take wholesaler unless you plan to avoid all fights in your playthrough. Now that we have some idea of how the trade skill functions, let's look at how the wider economy of Calradia works so that we might exploit it to our advantage. All trade goods are either made in a village or a town. There are 17 different basic trade goods that can only be generated in villages. Everything else is produced in workshops in a town. Once these goods are produced, they are delivered to the nearest town of that owner's kingdom. The buy and sell price of each good will fluctuate depending on the volume of the good in that town. If there is a large stock, the price will be very low to buy and sell. If they have a small stock, the price will be very high to either buy or sell. Merchant caravans travel the map and move goods from high density areas to lower density areas for a profit. However, there are only so many caravans going around and they can't be everywhere they are needed, leaving plenty of room for us to swoop in. Let's identify parts of the map that produce a certain good in excess and then move it to another part of the map that doesn't have any production of that good. I've cataloged the production of each village into a database so we can quickly and easily determine where our best opportunities for profit will come from. Let's take grapes for an example. We can see they are only produced in 3 factions: Vlandia, Battania, and the Western Empire. They are all located in the north and west of the map, so it's safe to say the southeast of the map should be more often than not lacking in these goods. This won't always be the case because caravans do deliver from time to time, but if we average the number of times a town is depleted of grapes, it's much more frequent in Aserai and Khazate lands since they are the furthest away. Some other examples of this are fur being produced in the north by Sturgia, Vlandia, and Battania, but nowhere else. Olives being produced in Aserai, Vlandia, and Western Empire, and nowhere else. Cows being produced in Sturgia, Northern Empire, and Khazate, but nowhere else. And the best of all, dates. 8 villages in Aserai and only 1 in the Western Empire produce these, but nowhere else on the map. For items that are produced in a workshop, the same logic applies. Wine will be cheapest where grapes are present, beer where grain is plentiful, and so on. Mounts are unique in that every faction produces their own type and each trades within a different price range. They can be broken up into 3 categories: pack animals, tier 1 mounts, and tier 2 mounts. The pricing is determined by the stock of the category as a whole, as opposed to the individual horse. If we have 3 kinds of tier 1 horses and try to sell them, the sale price of all tier 1 horses will decrease regardless of which one we are selling. I traveled to each city on the map and tracked the minimum buy price and maximum sell price of each animal to get a range of what each would sell for. Looking at the data, there are some interesting points to make here. Battania has the cheapest horses at 109 dinars, so buy from here for cavalry upgrades and campaign map move speed increase for mounted infantry. Empire has the cheapest tier 2 horses at 279, so buy from here for the high tier cavalry upgrades. Pack animals are nearly identical, so buy whatever's cheapest. When buying mounts to sell for profit, it's best to buy one with the widest profit margin, which would be the desert horse for tier 1 and Aserai horse for tier 2. Also keep in mind that pricing will fluctuate in each playthrough, so my listed prices will most likely differ from yours. However, the prices relative to each other should hold constant though. Desert horses and Aserai horses will always be more expensive than the others. One final note about the economy as a whole: since scarcity drives prices up and abundance drives prices down, it would make sense that the more rare an item is, the easier it will be to find a profit by selling it. Looking at all villages combined, we can see that grain is the most produced item in the game at 44 villages, while hogs are the least with only 8. This is not to say you can't make money trading grain, but that the opportunities will be less plentiful because there is so much of it around the map. To drive home this point, I let the game run for a full year, and then I went to every settlement on the map without unpausing and bought every single trade good available. Here are the stats from that. Rough cost to buy everything was about 1.7 million dinars. grain is nearly 3 times more plentiful than anything else on the map. Beer is the most produced workshop good and firmly within the top 6 of everything. You can trade more volume with raw goods, especially food, but you will earn a higher net margin per item with workshop produced goods, but at much less volume. In order to put the knowledge to good use, I ran many different experiments to see what method would work best. Each run lasted 21 days. I bought only the cheapest grapes I could find and sold them in the south for the most profit, making a measly 77.31 dinars. I did the same thing with sheep, making close to double that at 12,511. With fur, I got it up to 16,241. I tried all the different horses, but most were a flop, except of course the desert and Aserai horses, which yielded anywhere from 57,000 to 71,000 dinars depending on where I sold them. I then went town to town buying only the items I could get for 50% below average or less and selling them until it turned green, bringing in 55,000 on average. However, the best results came from combining each of these strategies together, focusing on horses from Aserai lands as the backbone, but also buying and selling goods at each town along the way and targeting areas that have either high production of one specific item or a complete lack of production of that item. By doing this, profits for the same 21-day period could be nearly doubled. In the early game, trading can be very rough because you have no troops, no money, and no inventory capacity. We could try to grind our way up by trading workshop goods like jewelry or velvet, but my personal opinion is that there are far better ways to get established. A couple of my favorite are smithing, running tournaments, or completing high-value missions. I've gone over these in previous guides, so I will leave links in the description if you're interested in seeing how those work. Once we have a full party and about 8 to 10,000 dinars saved up, we are ready for the next stage. We start off the mid-game by going to the nearest town. My personal process is to look at horses first, then trading goods next. If sumpter horses or mules are around 40 or less, we will buy them up until we start getting a herd penalty. If we are in Aserai lands, then we can look at desert horses if they are around 200 or less, and Aserai horses for 750 or less. Next, we look at the trade goods starting from the bottom of the list and work our way up. The reason we do this is because there is higher margin per item on the workshop goods. We are looking for anything at 50% or less than the average price. Don't be afraid to go a little over weight capacity, as the penalty isn't very much until you start getting way overburdened. If we are not in Aserai lands, then we head to the next town that is on the way there. If we are already in Aserai, then either continue to fill up on horses or start working your way up to Valandia, stopping at every town along the way. The next town we stop in, we repeat the same process, buying all the cheapest goods. Next, we look at our inventory and sell off anything that can earn at least an average sell price or higher. Red is the best, yellow is acceptable, green is when we stop. The premise here is that we buy for at least 50% less than the average and then sell for the average, maintaining close to a 50% gross margin minimum. Finally, for the horses, I like to get at least 100 for sumpter horses and mules, 300 for desert horses, and 1300 for Aserai horses. Late game starts when you get so bored doing trade runs that you want to start a new playthrough. Okay, joking aside, if you want to continue and hit the final perk allowing you to buy settlements, more power to you. If you plan on having a normal playthrough, then I suggest transitioning out of the middle game when you have at least level 125 trade, artisan community, so you can pile up the renown quickly. For the late game, I like to use about half of my inventory for cheap food and the rest for other goods. The food is great to have for several reasons. You can focus on leading your army rather than starving your troops. Recently conquered towns need tons of resources, so it's an easy way to make money and level up trade. And finally, if other troops in your army run out of food, you can donate to them, earning a fair bit of influence. You can keep an eye out for towns under siege and rush there, but my preferred method is to take the siege to the town. That way we expand our empire and level up trade at the same time. We are nearing the end of the video, and as promised, I'm going to show you one of my favorite strategies for weakening any town in Calradia, the hostile trader. To start, we will need a significant amount of money, usually in the 1.5 to 2 million dinar range should be sufficient. We can target any town, but my preference is to target cities that are on the edge of a conflict zone and their attached villages are being raided. Our goal is to starve the city out by constantly buying all trade goods, so if the food production of the city is already hampered due to the raiding and recent sieges, then it speeds the process up significantly. Enter the town, wait for a full day, and carefully watch when any of the numbers for the town at the top of the screen update, usually about twice a day. Next, we wait in town until just before those times and pause. Buy everything on the goods page and then wait again. Repeat this process until the town is starving and has a daily deficit for food. This will not only harm the prosperity of the town, but can reduce the garrison and militia. I've gotten towns down from 400 plus troops to less than 200 before using this method. making for an easy target for a quick siege. If you need to level your trade skill, you can sell back all green items to the city and rebuy them immediately. On average, I was able to sell 25,000 dinars worth of goods, which I immediately bought back for 27,000 dinars, and earned 2,500 XP for trade. It's time consuming, but so is running around the map trading, and at least with this method, you'll be able to take the town easily when you're done. I want to thank you all for watching another Strat Gaming video guide. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe. The likes really help out the video with the YouTube algorithm, and a small channel like this one needs all the help it can get. Let me know in the comment section below what kind of guide you would like to see in the future. Up next, we will be doing a complete guide on the intelligence skills, so stay tuned. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.